Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Champions of Inspiration. I am tremendously honored, as are all of you, to hear from this gentleman today. Bob is, for 30 years, successfully worked with entrepreneurs and leaders, sales professionals, truly helping them communicate their value and accelerate their ability for referrals. In fact, I first learned of Bob and his great work in the book Endless Referrals way back then. And then he came out with his business parable, The Go Giver. And that changed a whole lot of things for a whole lot of people, me included. Co-authored with John David Mann, and created a worldwide movement. Now 4 books, translated in over 30 languages, rated top 10 in Inc.'s magazine list of most motivational books ever written. And I would agree with that. Actually listened to the audiobook again in the last couple of days. And HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob Burg, thanks for joining us on Champions of Inspiration.
My pleasure, Scott. It's so great to be with you. Thank you.
You know, as we were saying just before we went on, I literally, when I first read the book, I was on the road a lot. I was doing about 288 talks a year.
Wow.
Craziness when you think about it now. But I created these top of mind cards, and they were for me to make sure that I stayed and had the right things top of mind. But one of the things I did, that's one side of the card, but the other side is the 5 laws of the Go Giver. And so what it allowed me to do is every day, as I took it out and put it away, I reviewed the 5 laws. So you made a huge impact, not only on me, but on so many. Thank you for that, by the way.
I take that as a great compliment. Thank you.
You know, you talk about the Go Giver really from the entrepreneurial perspective, but doesn't it really spread across all areas of business?
Oh, yeah, sure. Because even if you're, working within a company, somebody else's organization, you might not be an entrepreneur, but you're an intrapreneur. You still need to have the entrepreneurial mindset, because when you think about it, what is the essence of an entrepreneur? They are finding ways to bring immense value to others. That's the only way they're going to be able to stay in business and have a sustainably enjoyable, fulfilling, profitable business. I often say when I speak at any type of entrepreneur or sales conference that nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money or would like the sale, or even because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so, which is fine. That's the only reason we should expect anyone ever to do business with us. As an intrapreneur, right, as an employee within another person's company or organization, hey, your employer is not going to pay you because you need the money, or you have a mortgage payment to meet, or you want to send your kid to a certain school, or because you're a really nice person, right? They're going to pay you and continue to pay you because they believe you bring more value to the organization than what they're paying you. It's like anything else. Now, in this case, so then as an entrepreneur, your customer is not necessarily the end user, although they could be, but not necessarily. It might be your supervisor, your colleagues, the people you lead. It could be that person in that other silo, right, who's usually not forthcoming with information and help, but because of your kindness and tact and abilities, you're able to help bring out this person's best and help the organization, right? And so really that's what it comes down to. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you've got to find a way to bring market value to others.
I absolutely love that, because it is all about value, and we'll get into that here in a second. But for those of you who don't know about the Go Giver, first of all, shame on you. It's been out way too long for you to not know. So that's your scolding for the day. But help everybody with a little premise about the book, just to give them a little flavor, and then we'll get into the laws themselves.
Yeah, it's as you said, a business parable, co-authored with John David Mann, who's a fantastic writer. I'm really a how-to person. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. John, who can also do that, is also he's a great writer. So he's what really made it sing and come to life. And it's about a guy named Joe who's a good guy. He's an up and coming, ambitious, aggressive really focused, a salesperson, but the focus is on himself, right? It's not really on others. And he finds that although he works very hard, he's not nearly as successful as he kind of believes he should be. And then he meets a mentor who introduces him to some people, and he learns a very basic lesson. And this is the premise of the book, that shifting your focus, right? And that's the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And again, not for some, way out there, magical, mystical, woo-woo kind of reasons. It makes logical, rational sense. When you're that person who can take your focus off yourself and place it on serving others, discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire. When you can move from a focus off of yourself onto helping another person solve their problems, helping bring them closer to happiness, well, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you if there's a match between, but they definitely want to be your personal walking ambassador and tell the world about you.
And word of mouth is certainly the very best thing. I know one of the things that I've strive for in my career is to leave everybody better off than when we met. Right? Is have that, because that's what helps to create that ambassadorship, right? That people are willing to talk about you nicely. People are always willing to talk about you, right? So let's go through the 5 laws real quick that you and John created here, so that everybody understands the foundation. Again, going from getting to giving.
Right. So the 5 laws are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. Law number 1, the law of value, says, excuse me, your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, that sounds counterintuitive when you first hear it. Give more in value than I take in payment. It sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy, right? So we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you also make a very healthy profit. And a very quick example I like to use is an accountant who you hire to do your taxes. She charges you, we'll just name a round figure, $1,000. That's her fee, literally her price, $1,000. But what value does she give you in return for this? Well, she saves you, let's say, $5,000 on your taxes. She saves you countless hours of time, allowing you to be more productive. She provides you and your family with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So she gave you, well over $5,000 in value, well over that, in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. So she gave you more in value than she took in payment. So you feel great about it, right?
Right.
But she also made a very healthy profit, which she should, because to her, it was worth it to her to exchange her time, her energy, her wisdom, her knowledge, her hard work, for that $1,000. In any free market-based exchange, free market simply meaning no one's forced to do business with anyone else. In any free market-based exchange, there should always be 2 profits: the buyer profits, the customer profits, and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. Now, here's the key. The reason this exchange took place was not because your accountant was focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense value she was providing you. The fee was simply the result. So this is why John and I say that money is an echo of value. right? Money is
Yes.
simply an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means the focus must be on the value you're providing another person. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided.
Yeah, I love that. I love that explanation, determination of it for a fact, because it is all about adding value. I like to share in my trainings, share the second story. And what I mean by that is have the other person talk first, tell you first, so that you can add to their situation. So
Yeah,
I
when you
love that
think
one.
about it, that's, that's the perfect way to go about it. When you think about it, what is selling? Well, I think by definition, it's discovering what
Yes,
the other
exactly.
person needs, wants, and desires and helping them to get it. Well, how do you do that? You ask questions and you listen to their story.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Love that. Okay, the second one.
Well, that's the law of compensation. This one says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law
Nice.
number one says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number two tells us that the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. Your accountant in the first example did a wonderful job of giving more in value than she took in payment. Well, the chances are you feel great about her. You would do business with her again, and you would tell others about her. Well, her other clients feel the same way. So our accountant is very quickly amassing that army of personal walking ambassadors. And as she continues to add that kind of exceptional value to the lives of more and more people, her income will continue to grow and grow. In the story, Nicole Martin, the CEO, explained to Joe, the protege, that the law of value represents your potential income, but it's not enough to just serve one person, regardless of how great a value you provide. As she explained, law number two, the law of compensation, is about the number of lives you impact, right? So we could say that exceptional value plus significant reach equals very high compensation.
Beautiful. Love that. And I think a lot of times people say, well, the whole premise of this is giving. Wait a second, when do I receive? And that compensation is certainly part of it, but that'll be one of the other laws down the road. How about number three?
So this one, law number three, is the law of influence. And the law of influence says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, sounds kind of counterproductive at best, and maybe even Pollyanna-ish at worst. But then you think about it, the greatest leaders, top influencers, most profitable, sustainably profitable salespeople, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking out for the other person's interests. Now, just a point of clarification or qualification, if I may, when we say place the other person's interests first, we certainly don't mean that you should be anyone's doormat, or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It simply, as Joe learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of business, of sales, is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, to make your win all about the other person's win.
Absolutely. It's living here in Dallas, having the honor to know the great Zig Ziglar for many years, and now still friends with Tom and Cindy and Julie.
Great family.
I was 17 when I read "See You at the Top." You can have everything in life you want when you
You'll just
help
help
enough other people get what they want. Right?
they want.
Exactly. That's some good Zig there. Nice. Way to drop that in. Okay. How about law number four?
Law number four is the law of authenticity. And this one says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. In this part of the story, Deborah shared a lesson she learned that, was game changing for her. And that is all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are indeed all very, very important. They're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. People feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. That
Right.
kind of consistency brings forth trust, and it maintains trust. So, authenticity is so very important. One key to being authentic is recognizing your value, right? Because we lead with our value when you think about it. So we have to, if we don't believe we have value, we can't expect anyone else to. So, yeah, I think there are two types of value, really. There's intrinsic value, which simply means just by the nature of being, we bring immense value. But there's also what I call market value. And I define market value as that combination of strengths, traits, talents, and characteristics that allows you to add value to the marketplace in a way you'll be financially rewarded. And we all have this. We all have different strengths, and we have different weaknesses, and we need to, know which is which and know which weaknesses are appropriate to work on, which ones we can ignore because they're not important, which ones we need to mitigate, which ones we need to turn into strengths, right? But it's very important to recognize that those strengths, those assets of value, and it doesn't have to be one big thing. Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, who's written some wonderful books, one of them being How I Failed at Almost Everything and Still, I can't remember the title, How I Failed at Almost Everything and Still, oh darn, I apologize for that,
All
that I'm
good.
not that I'm not remembering the exact title, so please forgive me. But he talks about a talent stack. And what he says is you don't have to be outstanding. You don't have to be Michael Jordan at any one thing, right? You can have some things you're good at, right? And when you combine them, when you stack those on top of each other, you can add really immense value.
Yes.
So, but it's important we know what those are. And sometimes the biggest hindrance to this is that, emotionally speaking, we're so close to ourselves that we often can't see the value.
Right.
And that's why having a coach, that's why having someone like yourself, that's why having, someone who can help you to see who you really are and what strengths you have. Because see, we come from our own set of beliefs, and we tend to see the world a certain way, and we assume the world is basically the same for everyone, right? So if we can do this, well, everybody can. It can't have much of value, but that's not necessarily so at all. So very important that we're,
yeah. No, I totally agree with you there. Sorry, one of the things that I train on a lot is sales and presentation is not, to me, an intellectual or tactical process. It is a heartfelt, strategic, relational process. It's that true integrity and true authenticity that you're talking about there, that to really allow you and your best to come through. And just like other 5 pillared systems, I'm really good at these first 4, but this 5th one, I am a recovering receiver. So please, let's make sure, because I think there's a lot of people out there that don't get this one as well as they should.
Okay, absolutely. And it is very important. Now, before we do, I've got to admit something. I did something I rarely do, and that is I multitasked, which is always very dangerous because I felt so bad about messing up the name of Scott's book that I looked it up on Amazon while we were doing this. I looked at my library and couldn't find it there. So his book is titled How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. And the subtitle is Kind of the Story of My Life. And
Awesome.
so
No, thank you for doing that. That's great.
Law number 5, indeed, the law of receptivity. The law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And this really means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you've also got to breathe in. It's not one or the other. We breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving, we breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts, though the world around us does not give us that message. There is such an anti-prosperity ethos out there in the world. And I suspect it's always been that way, but it really seems to be coming at us from everywhere, since now there's social media and there's everything else, but it's very anti-prosperity. And you'd almost think that, anyone who's made a lot of money did it on the backs of others or through some nefarious means or through, hey, it's a big world. Then there are people who have done that. But especially in a free market, a true free market, where again, no one's forced to buy from you, and government's function is to protect your rights and to protect from force and fraud, but otherwise for people to just exchange with one another voluntarily. The more free market you operate in, the more you can only make a lot of money by providing a lot of value to a lot of people. Because again, no one's forced to buy, from you. No one's picking winners and losers, but the marketplace, right? So by and large, I would say this: winning, giving and receiving are two sides of the very same coin, and they operate in tandem. It's not a matter of, are you a giver or a receiver? No, you're a giver and a receiver. Now, what you know is that the giving comes first. And this is universal law. These are laws of nature. We plant before we harvest. We sow before we reap. We give before we receive. It's like Pindar, the main mentor in the story, told Joe early in the book. He said, some people approach a fireplace and seem to say, hey, first you give me some fire and some heat, then I'll throw on some logs and some newspapers and light them at, right? Can you imagine going up to a bank to open an account and you say, hey, first give me an interest payment, then I'll make a deposit? Well, life doesn't work that way, right? And so we give value before we receive, but giving that value to many, placing the other person's interests first, coming at it from our true authentic core. When we do that, we create that benevolent context for success, and the money or the love or the friendship, I shouldn't say or, and, all right, everything comes toward us, and we've got to be willing to receive it. But those messages we receive from the world around us, those anti-prosperity, and this can be from a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies. We see it all the time, right? It can really get into a person's head, especially their unconscious, and they can have unhealthy messages about money and prosperity and abundance and business. And when that happens, they can easily sabotage themselves and really unconsciously. And that's the insidious part. It's not conscious. It's unconsciously rejecting all the good that comes to you that you've earned.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as like I said earlier before we went on, my online group community got together last night and we were discussing this interview coming up. And one of the people said, well, we got to be careful because if we're always giving, we can go broke, right? It's like the marketplace has instilled that in so many people. But I totally agree with you that there's no give without take. There's no yin without yang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's basically, I think, the question that person has, because it's a question we hear a lot. And that is, well, if you're a go-giver, if you're focused on giving, could you be taken advantage of? And well, here's the answer. The short answer is yes, because you can be taken advantage of anyway, right?
Yeah.
Now, the question is, are you being taken advantage of because you're a go-giver? No, not at all. There's nothing self-sacrificial about being a go-giver. I would say to somebody, if you find yourself taken advantage of on a constant, consistent basis, so I'm not saying once or twice or, in life that's going to happen sometimes unless you never leave the house and meet anyone, but I'm talking about a pattern of such, okay?
Right.
Then the reason this is happening is not because you're a giver or a nice person. It's because you're doing things in a certain way that's creating the environment for you to be taken advantage of. Remember, you're always part of that if that's happening.
Right.
So the first thing to do is recognize it. And then I say, congratulations for recognizing it, because only when we recognize it are we in a position to do something about it. And then we ask ourselves, well, why is that? Why is it that, what's the payoff in a sense for allowing myself to be taken advantage of? And there are many reasons we do things. And again, most of these are unconscious. And that's why we've got to really think about it, question our premises, ask ourselves the questions. Is it an excuse for me to not be successful? Is it that I'm looking for sympathy from people and that's my payoff? And I'm not saying either of those or anything I'm suggesting is true. I'm saying there is a reason. Is it that I don't have the tools to be able to recognize when someone's doing this? And if I don't, why don't I? How can I get those tools? How can I learn? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, very much
yeah.
so. Again, I mean, I think I love the way the book positions the whole idea of adding value. And I think sometimes, number one, a great way to, or a great byproduct of adding value is you need to be pretty creative sometimes, right? You have to think of outside the box. But so many people think, well, if I add value, I add cost. Again, I think it's a false
Let me give you an
thought.
example.
Yeah, please.
So this is years ago, and it was during the economic downturn of 2008, I guess. The book had just come out, and I got an email from somebody in Pittsburgh. He was a roofer, so he repaired roofs. And like all of his colleagues and competitors, they were all suffering because it was an economic downturn. So people, even if they had problems with their roof, didn't feel they had the money to invest in it. They couldn't wait to get the money back from their insurance. So business dropped. And so he said he did what all of his other roofers did, all the other roofers in the area. He cut back as much as he could, focused on getting as much as he could while giving the least value. Okay, he had anything to save money. So like everybody, then he read the book and he had another idea. How can I give more value? Okay, but how can I do it without it costing me significantly much? So what he did is he found a way. He learned how to kind of create a system to be able to get the money from the insurance companies paid to the homeowners very quickly and as much as possible. So now what he would do, as much as was supposed to happen. So he'd go knocking on doors, and he went to people who he knew needed a roof repair, but he wouldn't ask, do you want your roof repaired? Because he knew people were, what he said was, I can see you have some issues with your roof. I have found a way and can show you how to very easily get the money owed you from your insurance company with the least amount of trouble and the most amount that you are owed. That was it. Now he had, now he was bringing some immense value. Now, did it cost him some time maybe to look for that, but it certainly didn't cost him, more money in terms of, So, are some things going to cost you more money? Well, maybe not, but that's not what it's about. When you think about it, all the value that there's hundreds of ways to communicate that additional value that distinguishes yourself from your competitors. They tend to come down to 5, what John and I call elements of value, which are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that you communicate each of these at every point in the process, from when you first meet that person, whether it's inbound, outbound, in person, wherever it happens to be, through the relationship building process, the follow-up, the follow-through, the sales process, the referral process, to the degree you communicate those elements of value in the individual specific ways you will do based on your business, that's the degree that you will not only distinguish yourself in the marketplace, but you'll take low price out of the issue and you'll be selling on high value. We know when you sell on low price, you're seen as a commodity. When you sell on high value, you're seen as a resource. And that's what a go-giver is.
That's excellent. Just an excellent explanation of all that, and totally agree with you. When you provide more value, you will sell faster, less effort, at higher margins. All of those are good things. And it's because you gave value in advance. Man, it's hard to believe that that our time has has run through. How about
That was
one?
fast.
Yeah. How about one last piece of wisdom? Well, we might have to do this again another time, but how about one piece of wisdom to leave everybody with?
Well, I remember a person in one of my it was actually my second sales job, and I was in a sales slump. And I think he saw me as being like Joe, who I would later write about along with John David Mann. But at that time, there wasn't a Joe in terms of that. I was the Joe. And he saw me as, the young, ambitious, aggressive, but totally focused on myself and not my customers. And, which a young salesperson does sometimes, trying to get out of a slump, right? Which is the exact opposite thing. And he kind of took me aside and he said, Burg, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target, he said, is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others. And that said to me that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. It's never about the product or service either, as important as those are. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. And you know what? I'd say, in a sense, it's about that person whose life becomes a little bit better just because you are part of it. And I think if we can approach sales from that foundational premise, that's when we find ourselves 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Absolutely. Well said. Tremendously well said. How do people learn more about you and the books and everything that you've got going these days?
Yeah, 2 ways. Burg, BURG.com has everything there. They can also, if they're interested, look into our Go Giver online community, which is the Go Giver Community.com without the hyphen. So it's the Go Giver Community.com.
Wonderful. Bob, thank you so much for being here. You're such a amazing talent and just such a great heart. Always an honor to be with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you greatly.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us here on Champions of Inspiration. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless.